Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever watched someone living their dream life and thought, why them? Why not me? Maybe you felt stuck, overlooked, or like you were waiting for permission to start. What if I told you that the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is the question you've never dared to ask, why not you? In this talk, we're going to break down the inner walls that stop you from believing in yourself. We're going to shift the way you see your life, your worth, and your power. There's a voice inside each of us, small at first but persistent. It whispers through the noise, through the doubt, through the silence of your most uncertain days. And it says you're meant for more. But most of us are taught to doubt that voice. We're told to be realistic, to wait our turn, to shrink ourselves just enough to fit into the mold someone else designed for us. And so life becomes a waiting room, waiting for a sign, waiting for approval, waiting for the perfect moment. But what if the moment is now? What if the voice was right all along? This isn't a speech about chasing fame or climbing ladders. It's about coming home to the truth of who you are. It's about one simple, powerful question that has the ability to change everything. Why not you? From the very beginning, we are taught to become something, to strive, to compete, to improve. And while growth is a beautiful part of the human journey, somewhere along the way we mistake progress for worth. We begin to believe that we are not enough as we are, that our value must be earned, validated, or achieved. But the truth is, who you are at this very moment is not a rough draft. You are not a project under construction. You are already whole, already complete, already worthy. This world can make you forget that. It can condition you to think that unless you have the right job, the right body, the right relationship, or the right amount of applause, you haven't really arrived. You're led to believe that fulfillment is always somewhere out there, just beyond the next goalpost, the next milestone, the next validation. But what if everything you've been searching for is already inside you? What if you've simply been looking in the wrong direction? The seed of an oak tree contains the fullness of the forest. It may not look like much when it's first planted, small, vulnerable, hidden beneath the soil, but encoded within it is the potential of something vast and powerful. You too carry that blueprint within. You don't have to become someone else. You don't have to reach some imagined level of perfection to be worthy of love, success, peace, or purpose. It's already in you. The journey isn't about acquiring more. It's about remembering more. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that human experience comes with challenges, yes, but not deficiencies. You are not broken. You are not missing anything essential. You are not behind. The idea that you must constantly fix yourself to be enough is one of the great illusions of modern life. It creates anxiety, self-doubt, and a chronic sense of inadequacy. And yet, this illusion dissolves the moment you turn inward and recognize the sacred truth. You are enough right now, exactly as you are. This isn't about ego. It's not about self-importance. It's about honoring your existence as a divine expression of life itself. The breath moving through you right now, that is a miracle. The awareness that allows you to think, feel, and love, that is infinite intelligence flowing through your being. You don't have to do anything to deserve that. You are that. We spend so much time chasing approval, hoping to be seen, heard, and validated by others. But the recognition you truly seek isn't found in the eyes of the world. It's found in the stillness within, in that quiet place beneath all the noise where your worth has never been questioned, only forgotten. The deeper you go into that space, the more you realize you've been searching for something that has never been lost. You've been trying to find a light that was never turned off, only covered. In a world obsessed with self-improvement, we've forgotten how to practice self-remembrance, to sit with ourselves in stillness, not to fix or change, but simply to witness, to breathe with ourselves, to honor our own presence. When you realize you're enough, you stop striving for love and begin embodying it. You stop begging for validation and start living from authenticity. And the amazing thing is, the moment you stop trying so hard to prove your worth, life begins to reflect back your true value in ways you never expected. The mind will argue. It will say, but I've made mistakes, I've failed, I don't feel strong enough, I'm not where I thought I'd be. And the truth is, those thoughts are part of the experience too, but they are not the whole of who you are. Your value is not diminished by your pain, your past, or your perceived flaws. Those are chapters, not definitions. Even the darkest night doesn't cancel the sun, it only hides it for a while. And the light of who you are, your essence, has never stopped shining. You've just forgotten how to see it. We teach children to believe in themselves, to know they're special, but somehow we forget to remind the adult versions of ourselves that this truth doesn't expire. You don't grow out of your worth. You may forget it, bury it under years of comparison and criticism, but it never stops being true. You were born whole. The world may have convinced you otherwise, but wholeness is your original state. You don't need more followers, more likes, more money, more degrees, or more compliments to be enough. Those things may be beautiful expressions of your journey, but they do not define your worth. You were enough before any of them appeared, and you'll still be enough if they disappear. That is your unshakable foundation, not in what you have, but in who you are. The shift happens when you stop asking, what do I need to add to be enough? And instead ask, what have I forgotten that already lives inside me? That question will lead you inward, where all the answers have been waiting patiently, beyond the noise, beyond the doubt, beyond the stories you were told. And in that space, you begin to feel it, not as a thought, but as a knowing. You are not lacking. You are not a mistake. You are not incomplete. You are the miracle you've been waiting for. We grow up watching people succeed, excel, rise to levels of greatness, and somewhere deep within us, we quietly separate ourselves from them. We place them on pedestals: singers, athletes, entrepreneurs, speakers, artists, visionaries. We whisper to ourselves they must be special, as if the universe singled them out, as if they were born with something more clarity, more drive, more gifts, more luck. And in doing so, we create a gap between their lives and our own, a gap wide enough to hide our own potential. But what if that belief that there are special people chosen for greatness and the rest of us are just observers is a myth? What if this illusion is the very thing that has kept you from stepping into your own light? There's something deeply damaging about the story that only a few are meant to shine. It not only breeds comparison, but it creates a quiet resignation in the minds of so many. You start to believe that your life is meant to orbit around someone else's purpose. You silence your own dreams, not because they aren't real, but because you've decided they aren't valid unless the world deems them impressive enough. But who gave the world that authority? Who told you that worth is a competition? Who decided that greatness is reserved for the chosen few? The truth is, no one is chosen. People choose themselves. That is the secret. That is the shift. Those you admire, those you think were born under a different star, they made a choice. They chose to believe in something before anyone else did. They acted, they moved, they risked, not because they had certainty, but because they had a deep enough inner whisper that said, this matters, this feels real, do it anyway. And so they stepped forward again and again while others waited. There is no divine lottery that hands out talent to the lucky and obscurity to everyone else. There is only awareness of what is already within you, awareness of what calls you, what stirs you, what refuses to be ignored. And yet most people ignore it anyway, not because they lack gifts, but because they lack belief. It's not the absence of talent that holds people back. It's the presence of doubt. When you look at someone who is standing in their power, living out their dream, what you're really seeing is alignment. A human being who dared to stop waiting for approval and decided to give themselves permission. That's what makes them special in your eyes. Not some magical trait, but a willingness to walk the road most never begin. Not because it was easy, but because it was honest. You are not excluded from that possibility. You are not the exception to potential. The same life force that breathes through the artist, the leader, the healer, the pioneer, it breathes through you. The difference is most people never stop to listen. They're too busy distracting themselves from their calling or convincing themselves they're not enough. And in that noise, they forget the gift isn't in someone else. It's in them. It's always been. But to access it, you must first dismantle the illusion, the lie that you need to be someone else to matter, that you must be louder, smarter, more charismatic, more connected. No, you need only be real. You need only be present with yourself long enough to remember what matters to you, not what impresses the world. Look around you. Every name you know, every voice you followed, every person you've looked up to, they started somewhere, usually in silence, usually in doubt, usually with nothing but a tiny spark they dared to protect while the world told them to blow it out. They weren't better than you. They just believed long enough to keep going. We idolize success because it's easy to romanticize the end result. We see the stage, not the solitude. We see the finished product, not the 100 times it was doubted, rejected, or feared. We don't see the years it took to trust that inner whisper, the courage it took to keep answering it when there was no evidence to support it. And that's the thing. The world only celebrates what it can see, but the journey of becoming happens in the invisible. You are not meant to live in the shadow of other people's greatness. You are not meant to watch life through the lens of admiration and envy. You are meant to create, to build, to express. Not in the same way as anyone else, but in your own sacred, irreplaceable way. Your voice matters not because it's loud, but because it's yours. Your path matters not because it's perfect, but because it's true. And truth, when walked with courage, always leads somewhere meaningful. The moment you stop believing in the illusion of special people is the moment you start waking up to the power already within you. No one is coming to grant you permission. No one is coming to crown you worthy. You don't need a platform to begin. You need presence. You don't need an audience to believe. You need alignment. And that begins when you shift from asking, who am I to do this, to who am I not to? The question isn't whether you're capable, you are. The question is whether you're willing to break the spell that says you're not, whether you're willing to step out of the mental story that greatness belongs to others, whether you're ready to stop observing and start participating, not in someone else's dream, but in your own. One of the deepest sources of suffering in the modern world is the need to be seen, to be liked, to be approved of. From early childhood, we are trained, often unintentionally, to seek permission for our existence. We are rewarded when we conform, when we meet expectations, when we earn gold stars and nods of approval. Slowly, subtly, this becomes the foundation of how we see ourselves. Our value becomes entangled with performance, opinion, and applause. But there comes a point in every person's life, or there must, when the soul begins to feel the weight of that dependency. When trying to be what others want you to be becomes exhausting. When performing for the world begins to feel like betrayal to the self. This is the awakening. Not a dramatic spiritual event, but a quiet realization. I cannot live my life by someone else's script. As long as your worth is tied to the validation of others, you are not free. You may feel comforted when people praise you, but that comfort comes at a cost. It keeps you enslaved to the need for more. The high of validation fades quickly, and then you're back chasing it again, performing, pleasing, adjusting who you are to maintain the illusion of being enough. But chasing approval is like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. Freedom does not come from more people liking you. It comes from no longer needing them to. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about rejecting the world or becoming detached in a cold way. It's about anchoring your sense of identity within yourself so deeply that the opinions of others no longer shake your foundation. It's about choosing to live from your truth, even if that truth is not always applauded, even if it's misunderstood, even if it's not popular. The paradox is, the more you let go of needing validation, the more people are drawn to you, because there is something magnetic about authenticity. People may admire your success, but they feel your presence. They resonate with your wholeness. And that can only come when you no longer outsource your worth. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be appreciated. We are social beings. We are meant to connect, to be in relationship with one another. But there is a vast difference between sharing your light and begging for someone to notice it. The former is an act of love. The latter is an act of fear. One arises from wholeness, the other from lack. Many of us were never taught how to validate ourselves. We were taught to look outward to the grades, the job titles, the compliments, the social media likes, the approval of family, friends, and strangers. And so when life doesn't reflect back the praise we crave, we fall into the trap of self-rejection. We assume that we are unworthy because others didn't see our value. But that's a dangerous game because the world is full of blind eyes. People will overlook you not because you're not enough, but because they cannot yet see clearly. They're looking at you through the fog of their own wounds, judgments, and insecurities. So how do you break free from this need for validation? You begin by turning inward. You sit with yourself, not to judge, but to witness. You learn the rhythm of your own truth. You ask yourself, what do I believe in? What matters to me? What do I know to be real, even if no one else agrees? And then you practice standing in that knowing, quietly, gently, without explanation. The most powerful people you'll ever meet are not those with the most attention. They are the ones who have nothing to prove. Their strength doesn't come from recognition. It comes from alignment. They know who they are, and that knowing is enough. When you detach from external validation, something incredible happens. You become creative again. You stop trying to impress and start trying to express. You stop filtering your soul to fit someone else's expectations. You begin to live not from the surface, but from the center. And that center is where your true voice lives, not the voice shaped by the crowd, but the one that has always existed in the quiet of your being. We live in a culture that measures worth in metrics: followers, dollars, applause, applause, applause. But none of those things can define your value. You are not your resume. You are not your achievements. You are not the praise you receive or the criticism you fear. You are something deeper, something untouched by opinion, and that is where your real life begins. To detach from validation is not to become careless or disconnected. It is to become rooted, grounded, whole. It means choosing your path, not because it will win approval, but because it is your path. And when you walk it with integrity, when you choose truth over popularity, something opens inside you, a quiet confidence, an inner strength, a peace that no applause can give and no rejection can take away. Most people will never know this kind of freedom because it requires surrender. Not surrender to the world, but surrender to yourself. It means letting go of the need to be liked, to be understood, to be praised. It means being willing to be misunderstood for the sake of authenticity. It means trusting that your worth is not negotiable. It's eternal. And that trust, once awakened, cannot be taken back. It changes everything. Not because the world sees you differently, but because you finally begin to see yourself clearly. There is a moment, a quiet, often unremarkable moment, when something inside you shifts. It doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't need to. It comes in silence. It comes when you stop asking, stop waiting, stop doubting. It comes when, for the first time in a long time, you say yes to yourself. Not a loud yes, not a yes for the world to hear, but a sacred one. A yes whispered in the space between breath and belief. A yes that says, I am ready to remember who I am. That yes changes everything. Not because the world suddenly transforms, but because your relationship to it does. We are taught to say yes to others, to be agreeable, cooperative, accommodating, to say yes out of politeness, out of obligation, out of fear of disappointing someone. But few are taught the power of saying yes from the soul. A yes that does not seek permission. A yes that honors your alignment. A yes that rises from your inner truth, not your external pressure. To say yes to yourself is to reclaim something sacred, your own authority. The authority to follow what feels right to you, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's misunderstood, even when no one claps for you. That yes is not about ego. It is about integrity. The integrity of living a life that feels honest, a life that feels like yours. So many people are waiting for clarity, waiting for motivation, waiting for a sign to begin. But most of the time, what we're really waiting for is permission. Permission to trust our intuition. Permission to stop settling. Permission to begin again. But here's the truth. Life will not give you that permission until you give it to yourself. Life mirrors your choices. When you say yes to yourself, even quietly, the universe starts saying yes back. But that yes is not always easy. In fact, it often feels like a risk. Saying yes to yourself might mean walking away from something that looks good on the outside but feels wrong on the inside. It might mean disappointing others to remain faithful to yourself. It might mean leaving the comfort of the known to step into the unknown. And it might mean doing it all without applause or agreement. That is why it is so powerful, because it comes from a place that does not need to be convinced. It comes from knowing, from inner alignment, from a place within you that is tired of betraying itself just to be accepted. Saying yes to yourself is an act of remembering that you are not here to live someone else's idea of a life. You are here to live the truth that lives in your bones, the calling that moves through your breath, the desire that won't be silenced no matter how many times you've ignored it. There are people who will not understand that yes, and that's okay. Not everyone will feel what you feel. Not everyone will see what you see. But this is not their journey. It's yours. You do not need to justify your calling. You do not need to translate your truth into a language others can understand. What matters is that you understand it, that you honor it, that you stop editing yourself to fit into a story that was never written for you. When you say yes to yourself, you begin to live in alignment rather than expectation. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what feels true to me? You stop measuring your life by metrics that don't nourish your soul. You start creating from authenticity, not from pressure. And the beauty of this is that life becomes simpler, not easier, but simpler, because you are no longer split between what you want and what you think you should want. You are no longer divided between your truth and your performance. You are no longer divided between your truth and your performance. The world may not reward you instantly for that choice. In fact, there may be moments of loneliness. There may be times when the path ahead looks unclear, but there will also be peace, a kind of peace that comes from knowing you are no longer abandoning yourself, a peace that cannot be bought or borrowed, a peace that says, I may not have it all figured out, but I am walking in the right direction. There is a sacred energy that moves when you begin to honor yourself, not in arrogance, but in quiet devotion. Life responds to that kind of energy. Doors open, synchronicities appear. People come into your life who reflect the version of you that is finally showing up, not the mask, not the performance, but the real, raw, honest you, the one who said yes. We often underestimate how powerful one choice can be. One internal yes, one act of courage, one moment of alignment. You don't have to change your whole life in a single leap. You don't have to have all the answers. You only have to say yes to what feels right now. That yes might be small, like getting up 1 hour earlier to write, like choosing rest instead of hustle, like saying no to something that drains you. But every small yes adds up. Every yes becomes a thread, and soon those threads become a fabric. The fabric of a life built not on fear, but on freedom. There's no formula for the perfect moment, no ideal conditions where everything aligns and all doubts vanish. You will always carry some uncertainty, but you can still move forward. You can still act. You can still choose. And in that choice, you send a message to your heart, to your mind, to the universe that says, I'm ready. Not perfect, not fearless, just ready. Ready to stop waiting, ready to stop pretending, ready to stop pretending, ready to stop postponing your own becoming. Because deep down you know, you've always known, the life you want, the peace you seek, the fulfillment you crave, it's waiting on the other side of one quiet, courageous decision to say yes to yourself. At some point in life, each of us must face a mirror that reflects more than just our image. It reflects our doubts, our potential, our forgotten dreams. And in that still reflection lies a quiet, powerful question. Why not you? Why not the one who rises above limitation? Why not the one who steps beyond fear? Not because it's gone, but because it no longer gets to decide the path. Why not the one who breaks cycles, who chooses growth, who decides that enough is enough? Not because you've reached perfection, but because you finally remembered your power. You are not the exception to greatness. You are not the shadow in someone else's story. You are the main character of your own becoming. And every moment you say yes to yourself, you rewrite what's possible. The world does not need another imitation of someone else's version of success. It needs you, fully, freely, unapologetically you. You are already enough. The idea that some are born for greatness while others are meant to settle is a lie sold by a fearful world. Greatness lives in presence, in self-respect, in choosing truth over comfort. It lives in the courage to say, I no longer need the world's permission to be whole. You don't need to be louder, more impressive, more liked. You need to be real. You need to trust that inner whisper that has been calling you, nudging you, reminding you, this life is yours. You need to release the illusion that someone else's opinion can define your worth. And most of all, you need to remember the power that returns to you the moment you stop waiting and start deciding. So when the old stories return, the ones that say you're not ready, not chosen, not enough, you meet them with the only question that ever truly mattered. Why not you?